Hi, I'm Sophie and welcome to my world. You know, yarn can be used from everything from making clothing to bracelets to funny little friends. I'm going to teach you how to make your yarn into a princess doll or a boy doll or an octopus. Believe it or not, all three of them are made pretty much the same way, and I'm going to teach you how to make them right now. So for this project, we're going to need yarn. I'm going to be using yellow for the hair and purple for the body. So I've got two kinds of yarn here. I'm going to need some scissors. I've got some little googly eyes. I've got a ruler. I have a piece of cardboard that I've cut to 8 by 11, and then another piece of cardboard that I've cut 4 to 6. So 8 by 11 and 4 by 6. Then I've also got a pen. And I have some tape, and I've also got my glue gun. You can use any kind of glue that you want, but I'm going to be using my glue gun. Now the reason I have my ruler here is basically I just want to measure down and mark the center. So 5.5 inches down, just so I know where the center point is. Now to get started, I'm actually going to get started with the hair first. And for the hair, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a piece of string that is the same color as the hair. And I'm going to make this just slightly longer. There we go, just like that, slightly longer than my 4 by 6. And I'm going to add a little bit of tape on this side and a little bit of tape on this side. Now, when I do my hair, I'm going to be wrapping it around. I'm going to hold down here. I'm just going to wrap it around. I only need to wrap this about 20 times, unless you want really, really lush, thick hair. And if you do, that's completely fine. Just keep wrapping. But you only wrap about 20 times. I've already done that here, so I'm going to leave that piece right over here ready for when we need it later on. Now for the body, what we're going to do. On the body, I'm going to start at the bottom here. And sometimes you do get these little knots, but you should be able to get those untied. I'm going to just take this. Now I'm not laying a piece of string down. I don't need to do that for this because there's so much give here. When you use tighter pieces of cardboard like this, they tend to get too tight to stick the little piece of string underneath once you're done. But when you've got a lot of give from a lot of string, it'll give you a lot more give. So you don't really necessarily have to put your string down unless you want to. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this here, and I'm going to wrap long ways around the 11-inch. So I'm just wrapping it around and around and around. Now here's the thing. I'm going to wrap this 100 times. So as you can guess, I'm going to jump ahead. So here is my piece done. It's 100 wraps around. My center part is marked. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually take some purple string and place it along that center line right here. Now because I'm adding hair, I'm actually going to just tie it and leave it. So I'm going to tie it here once, pulling it very, very tight, and twice, pulling it very, very tight. Now here's the thing, if you've got an extra set of hands, that's the greatest place to use them. Now if you want to make the octopus doesn't have hair, unless you want a hairy octopus. So you can skip this step if you want to make the octopus. But if you want to give it hair, here's what we're going to do. First we need to make our hair. So same thing, we just tied off the purple. We're going to tie off our hair, same way. I'm just going to take those pieces of tape off. I'm going to pull up my string, and I'm going to tie this nice and tight. And nice and tight. Now here's the thing. You can decide if you want to have bangs, and if you want to have bangs, then you're going to cut it right here. If you want to have straight hair that goes the same length on both sides, you're going to flip it over and you're going to cut it here. I'm going to give her bangs, and I want her to have nice, long, luxurious hair, so I'm just going to cut right here. Now, if you wanted to do short hair, what you would do is tie it, if it was like this, right? Tie it, cut it on the back, and then you could just cut it to the length you wanted. All right, now we're going to come on over here. We still have those two little strings, right? I'm going to take those strings, I'm going to feed them under one side and under the other side so that they wrap under. Make sure you can see this. Let me do this one more time here for you. So we got the purple tied off here. Take this string here, slip it under so that it comes out the other side. And the other one, the other string that's loose, slip it under so that they're crossing underneath. There we go. And then pull that up and just tie it on the top. The reason you're doing that is just to make sure that it's nice and secure and it's not going to come undone. There we go. Now, we're going to flip her over, find that center point, and take our scissors and cut. There we go. Now, we got our hair. We've got the starts of our dolly. All we have to do is make a head. Now, to make our head, we just decide how big we want that to be. Pull the hair out of the way. And we're just going to take a piece of this purple string. Let me get a piece. Come here. Okay, so we're going to take a piece of the purple yarn. Figure out how big you want your head to be. Then lay this underneath. I'd like to give myself more string than not enough because it just makes it easier to deal with. And then just pull it. And there's her face. Now we're going to wait to add all of her things like her mouth and her eyes. We're just going to cut that off right there. Trim that. We don't need that anymore. And we don't need that anymore. Now, to make her arms, what I'm going to do, oh, it looks like when I tied it, I missed a few. That's okay, because what I can do is just come back with another piece of string, real quickly, tie that in. There we go. I love yarn because everything's fixable, even if you make mistakes. Now remember, this is that upper piece. This can go away now. You don't need this. So let's trim that. If you were going to make your octopus and you wanted your octopus to bounce around, that could be his tie-off. Okay, now to make the arms, we're just going to separate out some yarn like this. And this is about probably like 20 strands. And now we are going to braid it. So divide it into 3 and just start braiding. Now you get to decide how long you want your arms to be. So I'm just braiding and braiding and braiding. And once you get the arms to as long as you'd like them to be, I mean, I always find that sometimes it's better to make them longer rather than shorter because you can always come back and trim, but figure out where you want it to be, take a little piece of string, and just tie it off. This is great for learning those techniques of like knot tying. It's also great for learning braiding. I've got this extra. I'm just going to trim it off. This makes great tie-offs, so hold on to that. Now just flip her around to the other side and repeat the process for her other arm. And what's great here is you can count. She's just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little braids here. So we're just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now we're just going to tie it off again. Remember, those little pieces of string are great. We're just going to tie it off. Now, for her body, she's going to be wearing a dress. And so because she's wearing a dress here, all we have to do is choose where we want to tie it off, where we want her waist to be. And we're going to need a pretty large piece of string for this. About 12 inches, just so you have enough. And figure out where you want that waist to be. And then you would just tie it off, like that. Now, here's the thing. If you wanted to make an octopus, instead of trimming these, and instead of making a tie for the body, you would just separate these into 8 pieces and braid all 8. Remember, you wouldn't have hair unless you wanted a hairy octopus, but you would divide these into 8, and then you would braid each of the 8 sections and tie them off, and that gives you your legs. But for your princess or your dress wearer, you're going to give her a waist. And we're just going to tie it off, pull this all down so it's nice and straight, and just tie it off. You could use a different color if you wanted to, so it looks like a little belt. Tie it off. You could even put a bow there. Now, if you want to give your person pants, what you would do is divide it in 2 like that, and then braid this one and braid this one. And that gives you your legs. And again, just tie off the ends. So you braid, braid, tie them off, and you've got pants. Now, to make the eyes, I'm going to be using googlies. And I'm just going to glue these on real quick here. Remember, just be careful when you're using hot glue. It can be hot, and these are tiny little eyes. So just make sure you don't glue your fingers. Whoop. That you're gluing the eyeballs instead. Okay, so we got our little eyes on. Now, if you want to make a little mouth, and you want to make that mouth out of yarn, what I would suggest is use a different color. And what you do is take your different color and just pull a little bit away with your scissors, like this. See that? So I've just got it stuck under a few layers there. And then just take your yarn and feed it through to the other side. Oops, come through. There it is. And now, just take this and tie it. And I like to give it a little knot. And then cut off the excess. And then just twirl the knot around so that those loose ends are in the back so that you don't see those. Tuck those away so that she doesn't have a keep going. She doesn't have a ragtag mouth. We want her to have a nice mouth. There she goes. Uh-oh, I buried her eye. Come back, eye. There we go. So see, by tucking that under, get that back under. By tucking that under like that, she ends up with a nice mouth. Now, if you have any little loose ends, this is the time to cut them off. There we go. Let's do this real quick, just so she has a pretty little waisty. We'll give her a little bow. So I'm just going to take this and make a little bow. And I can cut this off. Actually, that can go down like that. There we go. So there she has her long, luxurious hair. She's got her bangs. And she's set for the dance. And there you have it. The straightforward, simple yarn doll. And remember, with those slight modifications, you can make it any way that you would like it. For more fabulous ideas made out of yarn and other materials, come and check us out at Sophie-World.com.